Welcome to the Common Sense Show. It is Micah. I'm excited today because I have a very special guest here that I can't wait to dig into everything he's doing. Before we get into the podcast, just want to remind you that if you're watching this podcast on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast channel. Also, share it. If you are listening to the podcast, wherever you get your podcast, don't forget to share it as well. Rate and review as well. But sharing is caring. Sharing is the most important part. And finally, don't forget also that as I mentioned in previous podcasts, that I have some resources that are going to be coming out if you are a fledgling entrepreneur to already owning your own businesses and operating. That's going to help you to level up. And so today, as a guest, I have a man who has done a lot of pretty big things, and he's going to tell you about those things as we kind of get rolling. But remember that this podcast is for individuals who are running their own businesses, small business owners, entrepreneurs, individuals who are making it and who are pretty much mid-sized and looking to grow and scale beyond that. So today we have as a guest Preston Brown, who's a speaker, entrepreneur, and a multiple 8-figure business owner, specializing in disruptive innovation and profitably scaling companies. And before I finish his introduction, I have to change this automatic mic thing that's going on here. Okay. All right. So he's a serial entrepreneur who started his first company in college and was soon making more money than his professors. I'm sure they love that. So he had a revelation. He dropped out of college and has since then been creating busy, profitable companies. Preston has 18 successful operating businesses with gross revenues of over $180 million. He's an expert in finance, business, real estate, and has directly advised hundreds of CEOs and entrepreneurs on how to grow and scale their companies. If that's not enough, he lives in El Paso, Texas, with his wife, Erin, and their 2 adorable children. Preston, welcome to the Common Sense Show.
Thanks for having me, brother. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, no worries. Do me a favor. Can you just toggle the mute on your mic? Just because I'm not sure if I'm getting background noise from you or me.
Let's see. How's that? Better?
Better. I'm still getting some background noise. I'm not sure if this sounds like there's something running.
Let me see if I can turn down my volume on my speaker. How about that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's definitely better. For sure. All right. Well, Preston, welcome to the show. And anyone with a 5-minute introduction like you have is certainly worthy to be on the Common Sense Show. So welcome. So I told the audience a little bit about you and your companies. How in the world? I mean, I think we can get to the revenue and the formulas for success and everything later. What most people probably want to know is how in the world do you even have time to organize yourself to run 18 companies or be invested in 18 companies so that they can all be successful?
All right, let me drop a real simple bomb that if you have a lot of entrepreneurs watching your show is going to help them scale massively, okay? The key to understanding what a business is an optimized machine. No different than the car that you're probably driving, the one parked outside of your office or your home. If you want to drive that car to the grocery store, to work, you want that engine to work in an optimized fashion, like the pistons, the rods, the spark plugs, the fuel systems, the tires turning. When you tell it to, it works, right? Well, that's what a business should be. It should be an optimized machine. Now, what's interesting about business is when we get into business, when we're a small business, when we're that startup or that operational entrepreneur working in our business, not on it, what made us successful was that we were exceptional enough to go out and find a way to do something better than everybody else. Now, the problem with being exceptional is it connotates there's an exception, and if the engine in your car made an exception, you would never make it to the grocery store or the office. So the key is optimizing, putting in systems, processes, tools, formulas, and that way I don't run the business. I just hire the driver, and the driver drives the optimized machine. The driver could also be a CEO, chief executive officer, driving a larger scale machine with lots of optimization. So owning a business that's an asset, not an obligation, is how I have 18 businesses. I don't run my companies. I build them, I scale them, and then I set them up so that they can run themselves.
Now, are some of these are you in on an investor level to some of the companies that are operating for you?
I think that every entrepreneur goes in different stages, and one of the ending stages is investor philanthropist. So I'd say at this point, yeah, I'm probably the investor level on all except one. There's one that I'm still very operational, but it's more of, I mean, it's a passion project that makes some money. It's not anything that's ever going to be worth my time, but I have a blast with it. The other ones that make a bunch of money, I'm at the investor level, but I've been at the startup level, at the operational level. I've been at those levels. Like, none of these companies did I go buy when they were already 8-9-figure companies.
Yeah, and it kind of just brings to mind, Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant, and it says cash flow quadrant, but really it's a roadmap for someone who's looking to go from an employed individual to someone who actually can have their money make money. And so we're talking the cash flow quadrant starts on one side with employee, and then self-employed, and then business owner, then investor. So you've progressively moved, of course, through that quadrant, and obviously now you're an investor with these companies making money. What do you look for in a company to invest in?
So normally my path is not to go and buy a company. I've bought a few companies, but my path is to solve a problem. And I'll give you an example of one of my more recent companies. We decided to put a pool in our backyard. Well, through COVID, with all the supply chain issues, the pool contractors sucked. Okay, I'm a home builder, and that's one of my businesses. So I know home building is a checklist, right? So when we finally got the pool done, and I wound up finishing it because the guy was 9 months into what should have been a 60-day project. And I was like, all right, dude, I got it. I'll take it from here. And I finished it up. I couldn't get anybody to service my damn pool. So then I just started having this judgment, this frustration, this blame about the entire pool industry, because it was a disorganized marketplace where a lot of people did a very poor job of organizing and clearly communicating with their customers. So I decided to open a pool servicing business. That was in January. We now have over 100 accounts. We're making money. So it was a startup company where I set up what I wanted as a customer to be done in my pool. Then I found out what I would need to charge to make a margin. What are chemicals costing? What is this? What is that? What is the other? I went out and hired the people, clearly set expectations, brought in not a manager. That's what everybody calls them, but there's a presupposition that you're better than someone if you're called a manager. I brought in a measurer, because if you're going to have a key performance indicator in your business, it's something that should be measured in an ongoing fashion. So a measurer is really the only person that can manage. That person would measure, guide, and direct I think now 3 or 4 people that we have servicing pools. And now we've got 100 accounts. I get anything I want on my own pool for free. I solved a problem, and we have a new money-making machine. So for me, I like the process of starting a business and going all the way to the finish line. I look at it like kids. Like, do you want to adopt somebody else's kid at 18 years old and then just hope they're a great adult, or would you like to be involved in raising them and make your own?
Right. Yeah. No, it's a good point. And there's obviously this thing where, it's almost like you hear constantly this thing called like the American dream. Buy a house, you have the family, you have the house, you have your own kind of lot and land, and then that kind of thing. But throughout the years, what's been mixed in this American dream has also been the like entrepreneurship. So it's like, buy a house, be an entrepreneur and buy a house, and then have the family, and then everything else comes with it. But the issue is that not everyone is an entrepreneur. Fundamentally, it takes a special kind of person. And in your mind, what are the qualities that make like a top flight entrepreneur?
Man, so that's one of those epic debates that I absolutely love. Not everyone is an entrepreneur, but everyone can be. Okay. And the only reason I say this is because there are people who are naturally gifted from birth, and they have, I don't know, it's like an extra gene in their chromosomes somewhere, and they just have this natural ability to adapt. And that is like the perfect they're probably born manipulators, but they can advance into leaders very quickly if they mature. But that's your perfect, typical entrepreneur. If you want to talk about people that are born with a gift. But man, I've seen folks that were very rigid, very structured, lots of rules, didn't adapt much, but they found enough pain trusting the system, going into the job market, and they become some of the most epic entrepreneurs, because everyone's greatest strength is their greatest weakness. I mean, the adaptable person is so adaptable they can get in a lot earlier, younger, and at a younger age. But the more rigid and structured person They may get in later. They may trust the system, go get a job, and allow somebody to bribe them to give up on their fucking dreams and go work for that guy. And then they realize how much that sucks and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go build my own thing because these people are dicks. I want to spend time with my family, my kids, and have a great life in a business. And because they're so structured, they wind up doing better jobs at structuring businesses quicker than the more adaptable person. So I've never found a person that can't be an entrepreneur. Most of what I've seen is the education system does not afford people the choice or the education that it's there and possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get it. So do you think that, so you broadly think that applies to everyone? You think that everyone can be an entrepreneur no matter who the person is?
You know what? I believe that everyone has the opportunity at some level. Mm-hmm. Now, is everybody going to be the next Bezos? Is everybody going to be, you, me? Is someone going to be the next Elon Musk? No, everybody's probably not going to do that. But look, success is independently defined. Can anyone out there go and make a couple $100,000 a year, adding massive value to someone else and building a better mousetrap? I think everyone can do that. Okay. Mm-hmm. Everyone can do that. Will most people want to go structure an organization with 300 freaking people in it that's delivering products and services, either regionally or globally? Probably not. Like mm-hmm. Most people don't want to deal with people that much. But, how many kids can walk door to door and mow lawns?
Right.
Oh, right. And I would never put enough blame, which I think is an acronym, or judgment on somebody. If we look at blame, being lazy and making excuses. If we make the excuse to say, oh, I'm better than that person and that's why I can do it, then I think we're wrong. I think everyone can do it at some level. And if you look at what is a sale is a solution to a problem that a person has. That's mm-hmm. all a sale ever is or ever has been. So is only some people capable of solving problems, or is it all of them? And it's all of them. It's just the level and scale that they're going to do it at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think that, you starting with introducing your pain point with the pool in your own personal experience, and then building the company where you've built all these accounts now, and then relating that to kind of what we just talked about is an important illustration of how a person can get involved in solving a pain point that they can become an entrepreneur with through a business. Now, okay, so we've gotten the person to start the business, and they're in it, and the business is growing. Let's say the business is at 140,000, 160,000 to 200,000. People say that you can hustle your way to your first $120,000. And then after that, to grow and scale, you need other things. And oftentimes those other things are behaviors and systems and processes that actually get you to the next level. So what are some of the things that you look at as someone who coaches CEOs and entrepreneurs and advises them to take them from mid or low six figures to the next level of revenue generation?
Well, find out where you're at, learn the problems you have at the stage that you're at, and solve those problems, and you'll go to the next level. Like everything is a structure, everything is a formula. Even a business, it's called an organization, not a disorganization. Mm-hmm. It's called a firm. A limp would be way less fun, right? So, when we're looking at
a limp sounds like you need to go see the doctor.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of businesses have that issue, is they don't have the structure. Well, the structure that you're putting in is different at different stages. Okay. And every stage is different. To get into business, you do have to hustle, but even that's not always true. Okay. And let me say this. A lot of people will listen to a lot of different gurus out there, mm-hmm. and they'll hear some guru, like I bought 2 airplanes in the last 2 years and I got huge tax benefits, and the airplanes are less than 12,500 pounds. So I can write off the entire airplane up to $1,050,000 per year. And because it's that small, it requires one pilot, and I can lease it out. I make money on them like people make money on Airbnbs. Mm-hmm. I'm making cash flow owning airplanes.
Right.
Now, if you're at a certain stage of entrepreneurship and you have a tax problem, you just found out the IRS is your business partner, call yourself a megapreneur, operational megapreneur, or investor philanthropist, this is advice you want to learn. Like, hey, show me how to do that. Mm-hmm. But if you're a startup, or if you're a non-start that's got some mindset issues you got to correct, or if you're an operational entrepreneur, a slave to your business, like working 60, 80 hours a week to keep everything together, you're screwed. people take the wrong advice or the right advice at the wrong stage, and they're doing the right thing. They're just doing it at the wrong stage. That's most entrepreneurs. Now, so let's start with hustle, because I love what you said there. I always hear all the gurus, and they're like, oh, you got to hustle your way to success. And the best lie the devil ever tells is the one seeded with just an ounce of truth, just an ounce. Mm-hmm. So here's what I explain to people. There is some truth in hustle is going to get you to a certain level, but hustle is effect. Passion is cause. You're not going to solve a problem that doesn't resonate with you long term, unless you're willing to run yourself out of gas, age yourself, stress yourself out. Like if you're not passionate about solving the problem your business solves, you're not going to keep doing it eventually. Does that make sense? And
sure.
And even as you age, like you might be passionate in your 40s, when you get to your 70s, you're passionate about grandkids. You're still not going to do it. There could be different reasons you're passionate will fall. So it's not all hustle. Passion is cause, hustle is effect. So that's one. Now, getting into business, normally people get into business because there's some level of pain, some level of inspiration. They become that startup. They start customizing their company. Now, 50% of startups fail year one, right? So let's assume you're past the wannabe business owner with the mindset issues, the entrepreneur, and you're in startup. This is really the second level of business, okay? Mm-hmm. Entrepreneur being the first, but that's the person that's not in business. That's just a wannabe. Your startup has to customize everything. They're in a race for survival. They're going to die if they do not find the target customer that meets that they can meet the needs of. Does that make sense? Like every good business is going to have 1 to 3 customer archetypes. 1 to 3. Like I've never seen a business with like 50 customer archetypes that succeeded. Like there's maybe people that try, but if you're doing everything for everyone, you're screwed, right? So that customer, the reason customer and custom is a root word of customer is you're going to fuck up enough times so you can customize enough to find the right customer archetype. And a startup should really have one that they're looking for. When you get to this one and you start getting successful, assuming you're in the 50% of companies that survive that first year, you're going to graduate to this next stage where, hey, I found that customer, but I'm going to do what I already did because that's how I got successful last time. And this is the biggest mistake we make. When we get to the next stage, we do the same shit that got us here to try to get to the next stage, which is, hey, I'm going to go find more customers, or I'm going to go open a second business while I'm really busy, or a third business or a fourth business, or I'm going to put 5 departments in this business. That's like being a shitty parent and deciding, hey, I'll have more children because that'll be the solution. It's not the right way to do things. So when you get into operational entrepreneur, which is where you're talking about, that's the next stage above startup. This is where you are a complete slave to your business. You're working 80 hours a week. You're solving all the problems. You're managing by crisis. You may have started bringing in a team, but you haven't trained them. You're not communicating. You're not properly setting expectations. You need to add people and systems and clear-cut expectations, job descriptions, grading systems. This is one that most people are still triggered about school, so they don't do. Like, you need a 1-page, high-level, gradable job description for every person in your company at this stage. If you're going to call your employee an A player, well, maybe they should get a fucking A. Like, don't call them an A player if they're a C player. And if you have 10 things on a job description, you give them all 10 points each, and they're doing perfect on everything, you need to give this person a higher level task. If they're an 8, 9s everywhere, they're an 80, they're a 90, whatever, right? Like, then that's a really good employee. If they're a 7, they're going to kill your company. So once you start setting expectations and with frequency measuring expectations, adding processes, adding systems, you're going to see that an operational entrepreneur, you're going to buy back your time with employees and systems, and you're going to graduate to the next stage, which is entrepreneur. You own your time. The problem is at entrepreneur, especially if you went fast and you own your time, you also took a huge pay cut because your sales haven't had time to scale that much. Say you were making $150,000 a year and you brought in a team of 3 people. Well, guess what? If they're all $30,000, $40,000 a year people, what are you making?
Yeah.
The sales haven't changed. So welcome to the pay cut. Entrepreneur should be a very short stage of business. You want to quickly jump into what's called operational megapreneur. You've already gotten used to being exceptional, being operational in your business, working in. So now it's time for a slight pivot or scaling if you're in a scalable area. But in some cases where there's a slight pivot, like I became an enormous home flipper. I was doing 103 home flips. That was my best year, but we were 90 to 103. Okay. That's where we were oscillating every year. We were so busy. Well, you know what I found? Building 400 homes a year takes none of my time, makes me far more money. Every single home I build is a checklist from the beginning to the end. Every single home I was buying and flipping, I would peel back layers of this onion, and it was a different amount of layers on every project.
Right.
And I had to get different contractors, different specialists. Everything was customized. Everything was exceptional. When you are exceptional in a business, you're not optimized, you're making exceptions, you're dying. So I pivoted to the home building side. I didn't get rid of my home flipping side. What I did was I created a wholesaling and hard money lending program so that I could loan out the money I made as a builder, and I would wholesale the houses that my home flipping company, because I could automate the acquisition and the contract portion.
Yeah.
I'd, raise the price a little bit, say $5,000, $10,000 more, and then I would finance another flipper, because that had no limits to the amount of scale I could do. You follow? So
yeah, because then you go from you being a single flipper to then financing flippers across the country. Assuming it's and the other piece of that is that you actually have control of how the money grows because you're looking at every project, right? So you actually have eyes on the return on your cash as your money is going out to whatever flipper and whatever market that they're going to be flipping in.
Well, and here's another piece that I want to give you right now, because all of your people that watch your show that are going to be interested in scaling oftentimes requires funding.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to fund a business that is all customized, where every single step is a custom process different than the last time. A bank will loan money to a builder, but banks do not like home flippers. Most home flippers have to go to hard money lenders. Okay. Now, as a hard money lender, I can call up the bank today because my loan program is very automated, organized, and it's a system.
Mm-hmm.
So if I loan out $10 million tomorrow, the bank will fund me $8 million at 5% interest. If I loan it to you at 12, I make 7% on the spread of 80%.
Yep.
And I make the whole 12 on the 20% that I put in. And I'm stretching my money. So with $10 million of my own cash, I've got a $50 million loan portfolio available to me to fund up. Does that make sense? Your lenders and investors that are going to give you good deals, not the bad deals, not the high interest deals, not that, are going to do that when you have an optimized system that can be automated. That's what the bank or the lender is looking for to give you scale.
Yeah, it is true. And if you have that, essentially, I get so many questions about people trying to figure out how do I put a system in place. And I always tell them, think about it this way. If you were to not engage in your business and you wanted someone else to come in and to do exactly what you do in the manner that you do it so that it makes money and it grows and it helps your employees to be satisfied both personally and professionally and all this other stuff. However you deliver your business that has gotten to the point where it has and has scaled up, you can turn this book over to them. No one has books anymore. I should say this Kindle. You can turn this Kindle over to someone with your operations plan and they can run the play. Think NFL, right? The coach is not out there catching passes or throwing the ball or blocking or tackling, but he has a playbook. That playbook is able to be deployed to 53 people who when they run the play, it creates synchronous and ability to actually move the ball and accomplish a goal for sure. And I like your Tyrion Lannister shirt, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you about the 4 flows of capacity that you talk about, and I think that's an important thing to bring up here. Can you introduce the concept of the 4 flows of capacity for us, and then kind of lay it out for us?
Absolutely, and I'll give you all a book recommendation too. Okay, so a book recommendation is called The Goal by Eli Goldratt. Okay, man was a genius. He basically invented the theory of constraints that they teach today in most colleges. He was brilliant. But the 4 flows of capacity is basically a very simple way to explain what's in his book. So I want to make sure I give him some credit. In every business, there are going to be 4 flows. This is one of the single greatest holdups of entrepreneurs because they don't understand how it works. When you know how a system works, if you know how to drive your Ferrari, you can drive it. Everybody's got that Ferrari in the business they've created. They just don't know how to drive it. They don't know how to tune it. They're running it on 2 cylinders. It's got 10 or 12, right? So There's lead flow, people interested in doing business with you. And how are you getting the leads? What is your cost per lead? Lead flow is all about generating an amount of leads with your brand and your product and your entertainment-based marketing. Why do I say that? Because the information age is over. Nobody gives a shit about what you do. They give a shit about how much fun you make them have when they're watching your content, watching your interesting information that excites them. And what interests them? Oh shit, it's what already interests them. Sex appeal, human emotions, controversy, let's see, branding, call to action, and God, there's one more. I'll think of it in a second. Anyway, but like there's 5 key triggers that are getting everybody. Oh, current events, I think, if I didn't say that. So there's 5 key triggers that people are already interested in that you can tie your brand and call to action around. Mm-hmm. And it's going to get you nearly an unlimited amount of leads based on your capacity. The second step is sales flow. So you have lead flow, people interested in giving you money to solve their problems. Sales flow. This is having the real conversation with them, whether it's done online, at a digital platform, whether you have sales teams. However your sales flow is done, there's ways to set it up where it will convert some of the leads and lead flow into sales flow. And that's where you make a promise to deliver on what they're asking for and solve their problem in some certain time frame, whatever your product or service is, right? The next one, deal flow. Deal flow is fascinating because every business is different in deal flow. Like in home building, if you contract me to build you a home, it's going to take 6 months, right? Mm-hmm. But if you hire a property manager, it could be snap. Service businesses are amazing and easy to scale because it's a list of steps you can do instantly, whereas manufacturing, it's different. But the deal flow is fun when you get into each business, but it's your ability to deliver on the promise you made in sales flow. And then last, cash flow, okay? So these are what's called the 4 flows of capacity. Now, here's where entrepreneurs die. An entrepreneur can work in all 4 flows. Why? Because they have 2 things that are pulling at them at all times: the reward of the business and the risk of failure. An employee, a member of your team, can work in no more than 2 consecutive flows. So if you put somebody in lead flow and sales flow, fine. If you put somebody in sales flow and deal flow, fine. Deal flow and cash flow, fine. But if you put somebody in cash flow and sales flow, you kill them. Mm. And I've never seen a business successfully put anyone in more than 2 non-consecutive or more than 2 flows. You'll tear up your team because that employee does not have the risk and the reward of the business. Okay, right. So that is a critical piece to the 4 flows of capacity. The next piece is the 4 flows of capacity is an enormous indicator of what you should be doing. I'll give you an example. My home building company, right before COVID, mm-hmm. there were plenty of leads. COVID turned out to be a market boom, right? Right. There were plenty of sales. I didn't even need a sales team. I literally could have put a registration box at the front of the house. People would have showed up, submitted stuff. We could have called them. We had a sales team, but we didn't need it. It was crazy how much demand there was. But we were selling 50, 60, 70 homes a month in some months. Yeah. And we had the capacity in deal flow to build 20. Do you know what that means? If you sell 50 and you can only build 20, 6 months later, you lied to 40 human beings that trusted you. Oh, yeah. What would that do to your brand? Well, a lot of builders took a very different approach. Now, my building company at this point in time was a small company in my town. We were doing, 70 homes a year. Okay. Yeah. We just bought it and closed, whatever, 70 homes, which is not bad, but it wasn't big. Every other builder went out and said, okay, I'm going to just go ahead and raise my earnest money, or okay, I'll accept all these contracts. How exciting. We turned around and said, raise all the prices of all the houses, 10 grand. And we were going up 10,000 a week at some point. We wound up raising our prices over $100,000. Wow. In about 2 months. Now, to be fair, we added a lot of things to our houses, but we were raising the price to slow down the demand because demand dictates your pricing. Does that make sense? And once we'd slowed down the demand to 20, then we were like, oh, wow, we have all this extra money. We have all these extra margins. Hey, let's throw a few more goodies in the homes, which further set us apart from our competitors. And then 3 and 4 months later, do you know the solution to high prices? High prices. Do you know what all of our subcontractors did? They raised the prices of the houses for us to build them. By
How did you preserve your
much
reputation?
stars. Huh?
Sorry, not to interrupt. How did you preserve your reputation when so you had this backlog, you raised your prices. How did you preserve your reputation given that you had to, kind of blunt the expectation from the public? What did you do to preserve
So we didn't
your
raise anybody that had already contracted. We
gotcha.
raised prices on new sales.
Okay.
Okay. So if you contracted, we were like, hey, we're good. We budgeted your house. Congrats. You got a lot of fucking equity. Good job.
Right. Yep.
Now on new sales, we raised the prices because we're like, we can't sell 60 homes a month. We don't have the ability to build that.
Right.
Well, here's what's crazy. 3-4 months later, all of the trades, lumber went through the roof. You probably saw it on the news. It doubled and tripled in costs.
Mm-hmm.
So did copper. So did everything. Well, all the builders that raised their earnest money couldn't get their appraisals on their houses. They were bombing their contracts. They were canceling everybody because they had to go to all their customers. They'd sold houses, say, at 200, and now that house cost 270 to build.
Yeah.
So we raised our prices. We were at 350. The same house cost 270 to build. Guess who became one of the only builders that was still moving?
Right.
Us. Because we followed the law that the 4 flows of capacity, it's an immutable law. And people try to fight it, especially small business people, but your demand for your product or service dictates your pricing. If nobody wants it, you're either failing at communicating or you're way too expensive.
Yeah.
Right? People don't see the value.
Yeah.
So if everybody wants it and everybody wants everything, that's an indicator that that market needs to increase its price because something is coming. You may not know what it is, but the costs came and ate builders. There were lawsuits nationwide where builders were like canceling contracts and they couldn't, and customers were suing them.
Mm-hmm.
Had those builders all raised their prices and honored the market, like the market never lies, right?
Yeah.
It's a wave. If the market goes down, we all know and accept, hey, we'll just ride it down. Well, if the market goes up, are you going to not ride it up? Because it's going up for the guys that you pay too. So you're going to pay them more. You better ride it up. And it made us now the largest home builder in our city. It blew us up because we were the only ones that could continue. Everybody else had firefights that they had to deal with. It was incredibly painful for a lot of the builders in our community. And I frankly, I think nationwide and probably globally. So we were able to surpass it following the 4 flows of capacity. This is something that everybody should pay attention to.
It's amazing, but I think that, there's a fundamental point here that I think I should make, which is that oftentimes you get business owners, small, medium, however large the company is, they just don't pay attention to trends and they put their head in the sand. And when things get stressful, part of being an entrepreneur is having the resiliency to be able to get your company from point A to point Z and ride the waves in between for the other 20, however many letters. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to monitor what's going on in the marketplace, know your numbers in your business so that you can make those adjustments like you're talking about. And yeah, hits are going to come. I am a CEO of a manufacturing firm right now. We manufacture soundproof devices that go inside homes, multi-unit family homes, things like that, right? This little thing right here. And during the pandemic, obviously, when it was raging, the supply chain issues, like as you said, the cost of wood went up. We had to raise our price on these a couple of cents, and the price of metal went up like 6 times higher than the price of wood. I mean, 2,100%. I think was at the highest, and it was absolutely insane. In fact, I met a construction manager who built McDonald's franchises regionally for the McDonald's Corporation. And he said what McDonald's started doing is that they started buying metal in bulk and warehousing it for the renovations for the future franchisees that wanted to renovate their restaurants. And they just started buying up all this as much as they can get their hands on. They would just buy it and warehouse it. It was so crazy. Yeah. But again, prediction and looking at the market and paying attention and knowing your numbers and knowing kind of how transactional, how business is ripples and waves. So I think that's an excellent point about the 4 flows of capacity.
Let me, because I know you guys have a lot of viewers that are looking at this and they're saying, okay, that's great, but how? Mm-hmm. If you're a startup business, you need a few key performance indicators. An entrepreneur measures. That's what you're saying. You can't just go manage. And if you're got your head in the sand and you're just paying attention to nothing except your mundane routine activities, go get a job because that's what that is. You're not an entrepreneur if you're doing that, And if you're pretending to be an entrepreneur and taking risks as an entrepreneur, doing that, you will die. You have to have key performance indicators that you measure. When you are a new business, you do these key performance indicators. 1, net sales. Okay. 2, net income. 3, net reviews. Net sales, net income, net reviews. What does net sales mean? That means sales over people that cancel their contracts, right? Net income, net, like gross minus expenses, net. Okay, so what is your income? You could also track net draws because sometimes cash flow and income is a little different depending on your business and business model. So if you're in construction like you and I are, you might want to track net cash too, because that's important.
Yep.
If you're in a very direct business, then income and cash are the same. But then you say, okay, well, when do I add new KPIs? Every time the shit hits the fan, you go back and you solve 2 problems. What was the problem that we need to clean up? What's the fire we're fighting today? And what was the problem that caused the problem that is? There is something that went wrong. And if you find out that something that went wrong, you never get the same management by crisis bullshit that you just had to deal with. I love management by crisis because it means I need to add a KPI. If I find anyone anywhere in any of my organizations doing management by crisis, I'm like, oh, great, cool. Let's solve the problem that is. Can I tell you a fun story about this where I actually learned this?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was from my 2-year-old daughter. Okay. My wife is like this gourmet chef. We don't believe in Valentine's Day. Like, we're not going to go out and have a government sanctioned date night. Okay. Fuck that. So what we do, and she like cooks this amazing meal. We'll invite 2 or 3 friends over. They can do their date night at our house. We bring them over. We got the hot tub, the cold dunk, the steam sauna, and a gourmet meal. We're freaking hanging out, getting massages, like enjoying the shit out of our night on Valentine's Day. Well, it's a few years ago. My daughter's potty training. And, you know, when little kids are potty training, they're dressed, but you don't put the diaper on.
Mm-hmm.
It's this amazing Italian meal. The aroma's there. We're drinking wine. It's perfect. Then this one asshole just shits in the kitchen. And the aroma fucking changes. And the ambiance completely changes. Now, frankly, the asshole was a 2-year-old girl named Gemma. She's cute. She's adorable. She's sweet. She was potty training. So is she a bad person? No, please don't judge her. It happens to you when you're 2 as well. Right. But we have a giant problem. And here's where I ask everybody. Would you want the chef to keep cooking if there's a pile of shit in the kitchen? No. But there's 2 problems. There's the problem that is the shit in the kitchen. So you obviously deal with that. But there's also the problem that caused it. And you know how we solved it? We talked to Gemma. We put it in the potty. We told her the potty was hungry. We told her the potty needs to eat too. And if she feeds the potty, we give her candy. For the next month, we were giving her lots of sugar. If you don't like that as a parent, whatever. It works for us. Mm-hmm. Dude, this girl never had a problem again. I think she had 1 more actually, and then never again after that. We solved the problem that was and the problem that caused the problem that was. If you're the type of entrepreneur that still wants the chef to keep cooking if there's shit in the kitchen, then you will not go solve the problem that caused the problem that is. There's always 2 problems. Mm. Management by crisis, you're only solving 1. Management by measurement, you're solving the problem that caused the problem that you're managing by crisis. And once you've done that, you add the key performance indicator, a new measurement, and you will never have it again. It's the key to automation. Okay.
I'm just glad I wasn't one of the members of the couples that you had over that did it in the kitchen.
Right. Yeah. Every other time it's been better.
Because then that would have been a bigger problem right there. Yeah. So that's, it's a smart way to think about it. And, look, crises are opportunities to learn. I think that any successful entrepreneur sees a crisis that comes up as, hey, even if you win during a crisis, it's an opportunity to learn because you're like, well, what did we do that made us win during this time? And I think I take what you're saying, which is you talk about systems and processes. You take what you did to win, you take what you did when you lost, and then you put it in, you write it down, you make it a KPI so you can track it so that when you go back and review it with your team, you can say, hey, look, this is what we did to win when the supply chain was broken. We need to keep doing this until it no longer works. Or this is what we did when we lost, and these behaviors actually cost us, $10 million. And we probably don't want to do this again because we don't want to lose money.
Exactly. And that's how you get your machine to automate it. Or that's how you open more machines and automate them. I mean, the only reason I have 18 companies and all of them are running themselves with the exception of my coaching company, because I love doing that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only reason I can run 17 of those 18 companies without being there, or maybe like one meeting a month, okay, is because that is the company culture.
Right.
That's the company culture. Is there's always two problems. And like, I love getting into culture. Let's do this for your listeners too. What's the first four letters of culture?
Cult.
What's a cult?
Well, are we talking about the Waco, Texas cult? Are we talking about?
See, that's what everybody goes to, and I love that. That's why I ask, because everybody gets triggered by the Waco, Texas cult. So everything has a good and bad, right?
Yeah.
But you got to think about culture. There's a root to the word.
Sure.
And cult, no different than Waco, Texas, or frankly, your business, it's just one is good and one is bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is a group identity. Well, if you have a business where everybody identifies as solving the same problem and is passionate about that, like say you have a home building company and everybody in the home building company loves what they do. There's a culture about delivering that product and supporting those families and then building beautiful communities. I mean, that's awesome stuff. You want that culture where those people solve that problem and they're living their dream. So when you're looking at a culture, what are the tribal triggers within that culture? Okay. And if you get the right culture, and there's two things. One, problem that causes the problem that is. Actually, there's three because we've added a third. The next one is core values. And I'll give you four that are so simple: productivity, transparency, integrity, okay, and kindness.
Yep.
We added that one during COVID because I used to have productivity, transparency, and integrity. But sometimes you need to give love in a tough way. So, kindness, we just saw the entire world blow up at each other. All right, so let's see. And last, train your replacement. Everybody gets triggered by this one. I'm like, why are you triggered about the idea of training your replacement? If you sucked, I would not want you to train your replacement.
Right.
If I'm asking you to train your replacement, it's because I think you're fucking awesome and I want to promote you.
Yeah.
Train your replacement. When you build those three things into a culture, and add in the identity of solving the problem, of course, that makes your sales happen, you build this company that can literally go to the stars.
Yeah, so funny is that the succession planning has been around forever, right? And with obviously we don't have, well, I was going to say we don't have monarchies anymore when the Queen Elizabeth just died, but mostly we don't have monarchies in the world anymore in most countries. But at the end of the day, they always ensured succession so that their quote house and their rule and their line would be intact, and so that it would preserve what they thought was the integrity of the quality of the rulership in the country. And so to your point about training your replacement, succession planning is not a bad thing. Having, and in this case, we're not talking about inherited succession planning, although that is a part of wealth building and creating a business. But in terms of having someone coming in that can do what you do, they're not going to be able to do it 100% if you're the owner, of course. But we've probably heard a million times people say, if they can do it 80% as good as you're doing, and that's enough to move the needle and grow your company, if they're an A1 star, let them do their thing and just step out the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to close with one topic that I thought was interesting too, which was you have 6 returns you expect in a business. And I think this is a fitting thing to talk about because it's the returns. And this is why we're here. This is what we came for. That's a song. I don't know who sings it, but 6 returns to expect in a business. What are they?
So when you're measuring, okay, there's 4 things you're going to measure. I'll give you a quick simplified formula, and then we'll go into the 6 returns. Every business is problem solving and communicating. That's what a business does. Okay. So there's 3 goals for every business: alignment, simplicity, foresight. There's 4 things you measure: culture, clarity, capacity, and cash. Okay. And I'll email you the formulas for all of these, and you can share them with your listeners if they want.
Yep.
And then there's 6 things you can change. What's nice about this is, my wife in her makeup drawer has 150 dials she can adjust. She can be a different woman on Friday night than she is on Sunday morning. And I will tell you, man, brother, Friday night woman is more fun. I like her better. But in a business, it's really simple. There's 6. It's price, product, people, place, promotion, and process. Well, some of my favorite things to measure, and if not measure because I'm a startup, project, okay? Because a projection is just a measurement you're intending, right?
Yep.
Is the cash part of the measurement. I'm looking for triggers of crisis that can hit me. There's 8 of those, and I'll get you those when I send you the documents. But there's 6 cash measurements, okay? 1 is ROI, okay? ROI is interesting, and this is the one everybody talks about. It's return on investment, okay? Return on investment is great. But if you started your business with $10,000 and you've got $10,000 back, then why are you still talking about it? Your ROI is 100%, and at this point, far more than 100% if you're still making money, so it's infinite. So literally every time you talk, you're stroking yourself, shut up. ROI is meant for investments, not businesses. Yet we always talk about it in our business, and that's really stupid, okay? And what the 2 sources of pain, ignorance and stupidity. And we don't want either of those in a business. So the next one that actually can be brought into the business as sort of an ROI, the ongoing ROI, is ROM, return on marketing. You want to scale a company, one of the most important things you need to know is your cost per lead. And what should you pay for your leads? Well, real easy. More than anyone else if you can be profitable. And if you can't, go look at your operation. Why are they better? How come they can? Success leaves clues, okay? So after ROI and ROM, I like ROD, which is return on debt, okay? Return on debt, and I'm going to say it with this other one, ROB, return on balance sheet equity, okay? On your balance sheet, if you guys have looked at your financials, you have assets, you have liabilities. Assets minus liabilities, if there's a positive number, is your equity in that company. That's one of the things the bank is looking at. So if my return on debt, say I owe $20 million on a home building company, which is probably around accurate, okay? And I make $20 million a year, okay? But my balance sheet equity is also $20 million, and I'm making $20 million a year. Then my debt and balance sheet returns are 100% and 100%. And it could be 50 or 50 or 30 or 30. Your goal when you are scaling is for those 2 returns to be the same. Good debt that is paying for growth, in other words, a bank or an investor investing and loaning you money and leveraging so that you can accelerate your highly profitable business faster. If ROB and ROD are the same, you are scaling at the optimized level. Right. If they're off, well, and sometimes they're off. Like say you're a 70-year-old person, you're like, I don't want debt. Okay, it's a choice, but you're not going to scale as fast as you could. Okay, but you're going to be safer, which is fine. All right. If you're a new business, you'll probably have more debt, especially if you have a lot of bankers that trust you, than you will balance sheet equity. But then leave some money in the company, build the balance sheet equity. That's smart because when the market crashes, the banks won't keep loaning if they don't see you pumping money in, right? So your goal is to balance them either way. Or if you're older and you just want to slow down, you can cut the debt part out, but you're also cutting the upside. All right, and last 2, ROE, return on emotion. If you're in your business and you're not having fun, this goes back to the hustle is a lie, passion is cause. I love what I do. I love seeing entrepreneurs succeed. Like it is so fucking fun to watch some kid 25 years old and he's messaging me 6 months later on social media, dude, I made my first $1 million because I followed your formula. I'm like, yeah. Like that shit drives me. Return on emotion. How do you know you're in the right business? You do it for free. Yeah. Like if you would do it for free, you're in the right business. Okay. Return on emotion or energy. Next, ROT. Return on time. What is your time valued at? If I spend, and let's say I have a lot of fun with my home building company, so I need to be in that one an hour to 3 a month for a couple meetings. I'm probably in that one 5 to 10 hours a week.
Right.
Well, you tell me if that's worth it at $20 million a year, and I'm enjoying it. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. And for 5 to 10 hours a week, I need to be there 3. I could make the same money, but if I'm in there 5 to 10 a week, I might be able to double it. Maybe we're buying some more land in other markets in Texas and Florida. Maybe we're planning on launching a second, division, or maybe I can figure out a way to do an ESOP and sell 50% of my company for $51 million bucks and go and buy a bunch of stock in a market downturn. I mean, there's so much shit you can do if you're having fun What's your return on your energy and your time? So energy and time go together. Return on debt and return on balance sheet should be looked at together. And then ROI becomes ROM. Stop saying ROI. These are the 6 returns of cash.
Right. Yeah. Excellent. I mean, I think you're absolutely right with that. There's so much more to talk about when it comes to business cash flow and returns, other than just return on investment. And you could have a great. It's like return on investment is almost like using percentages to talk about growth. It's like, okay, you invested $1, but you made $100. So what was your return on investment, right? It's like the percentage wise, you did better than everyone else in the world, but it was only $100. You can have a great return on investment, but also have to work 80 hours a week. That doesn't really tell the story. So I think you're absolutely right about that. Preston, how can people find out about you? How can they contact you if they can? Or are you this mysterious boogeyman that only appears when we say your name 3 times and put you on a podcast like mine?
No, I mean, I'm all of my social medias are like the Preston Brown. I wanted to get my own name, but somebody already had it, and he was way better looking, big, tall, black football player. I was like, damn. Okay. So I went with the Preston Brown, but if you look me up there, I mean, if you have questions, message, I or my team answers everything. We want all entrepreneurs to succeed. Like, we do for some folks that are like, no, I want more. I want coaching. I've got a weekly coaching program. It's group. I mean, you might get 100 people in the room. It's all on Zoom, but it's $29 your first month. We will get your business to the next level quick. It's $299 a month after that. But my thought, guys, message me on Instagram if you have a quick question, or TikTok or whatever. Like, we're all over the place. And then if you guys want more than that, reach out. We'll set you up. We'll get you hooked up, and then we'll take your business to the next level. And it's easy. You're doing the right thing. It's just at the wrong stage. We solve the problems in your stage as an entrepreneur. You're going to get to the next level, the next level, the next level. I mean, literally, in the last 5 years, I've been in business 15. 6 years ago, I was the guy with 7 companies. I was probably earning $1 million a year, dumping it all back into real estate. And, so I was investing everything, but I was working my ass off, and I had a high income, but I was a slave. In the last 5 years, my net worth has gone from, I don't know, $8-10 million 6 years ago to, if I sold everything today, 350, maybe close to 400 now. And it's all because I figured out what stage I was in. And then I'm so formula driven. I figured out what the stages were. Guys, get that information. Get what stage you are in. Solve the problems there. Go to the next one. There's no freaking limit. I mean, if it's okay, I'm going to end on this, okay? If you know how to grow a flower, you take this thing called a wannabe flower. It's called a seed. You give it a problem. You shove it in a giant pile of shit to be politically incorrect, okay? We call it fertilizer when we're politically correct. Then you add a little water. A few weeks later, what do people do? They're like, I'll lean down 6 inches above a giant pile of shit to smell this beautiful flower. Everybody loves the comeback story. Every entrepreneur is a comeback story waiting to happen. Like, all of you guys have it. Go fucking crush it, man. And if we can be of service, please reach out. We want to. We want to help.
Preston Brown, the $100 million man, is what I called you on my in the tags of for the podcast. But man, this was some great advice. And honestly, this is your systems and processes is something I preach. It's nice to have nice, well-rounded advice and detailed and focused advice that actually kind of moves the needle. And there's so many people who want to know what to do, but then when you tell them, there's another layer of them kind of moving slowly or dragging the feet, or I don't know where to start. But honestly, use your brain and just concentrate. I think one of the biggest takeaways I got from what you were saying was recognize that stage that you're in. And we all have the ability to problem solve. And I do agree with you there that we have the ability to problem solve for where we are. And it may be hard for some people, harder for some than others. It may take them a little longer to think about it than it does for others. But at the end of the day, everyone has the ability to level up.
Amen.
So thank you, Preston. Appreciate that. And thank you all for watching. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening, don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on the podcast, don't forget to share this episode with Preston Brown, with someone who you think could use it. Remember, If you don't go to work building your dream, you're going to go to work building someone else's. Until next time, I'm Micah. He's Preston. We're out of here.
Have an amazing